Welcome to the Get Organized HQ podcast. I'm your host, Tasha Lawrence. Every week, we share practical strategies for less stress and more peace as we dive into all topics life and home organization. I'm so glad you're here for this week's episode. Today, I am sitting down with Tracy McCubbin from dClutterfly. Tracy is a decluttering expert. She has actually written 2 books on the topic, Making Space Clutter-Free and also Make Space for Happiness. Both books teaching you how to transform your space so that you can have a space that leads to a joyful life. And today, we're just going to be talking about how Tracy manages all of the various daily to-dos and also some mindsets that can help you get decluttered, stay decluttered, and have that less stress and more peace that you are looking for. So listen in. Tracy, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today.
Happy to be here, Tasha.
Yeah, so let's just start and talk about your daily routine, right? Like, what does life look like in the world of Tracy? What are some of the things that you find yourself doing every day, almost every day? Like, what makes up your day in, day out routine?
You know, it's funny. My days are different every day because I have a client-based business. So I'm sort of, am I running to a job site? Am I meeting, Zoom meetings? Am I managing employees? Am I managing my own home and my own life? For me, it's such a small little thing, but one of the most important things is I try and do it either at the end of the day before I go to bed or first thing in the morning is I just create my to-do list. I really find that I get off schedule when I'm not realistic about time management and how long it's going to take to get something done and how long it's going to take to drive to the place to get the thing done. And also building into my schedule what I call the breakdowns. A phone call that you think is 15 minutes is 45 and then you're thrown off. So really starting the day, I kind of do it with my cup of coffee, just today's to-do list. What do I need to get done? What do I need to hit? What, if I find myself with extra time, where can I fit that in? It's really, somebody said to me once, the key to happiness is time management. And I kind of have to agree with them.
That's awesome. Yeah. So tell me, how did you train yourself, for lack of a better phrase, to write a to-do list that was realistic, right? I think we've all done the thing where we wrote a to-do list that looked more like a wish list. And then every day you're going to bed frustrated because you had a dozen things on your to-do list and you got 4 of them done. So how do you build in that breathing room for the phone call to take longer or to be realistic about how long it's going to take to even sort the laundry?
I did a lot of research on different sort of to-do list journals and different products that are out there. I used one for a while that's called Savor the Success. And there are a lot of practices in there that I really liked. And what I found is this is complicated for people, but I have my master to-do list, which lives digitally on a Google, and it's everything that's going on right now. And it's separated between personal and work. And then from that, I pull out what has to get done today. Some things are time dependent, and then leave room at the bottom for if there's extra time, here's what I'd like to. So sort of knowing that it lives on this master list and I won't forget it. And then I can extradite out. And breakdowns, you can't overschedule yourself. You have to be realistic of what you can get done in a day. I think that's where people get super frustrated. I read this really interesting article about people who are chronically late, and sort of common wisdom is that they're rude and that they don't consider other people's time. But what studies have shown is people who are chronically late actually try and do too much in the time. So they're like, oh, let me just send these 3 emails before I get out the door. And then and then the email gets a response. And then the next thing you know, they're leaving 15 minutes later. So it's being realistic about what you can get done in a day. And exactly what you said, not the master list. The master to-do list is the wish list. Like, here's everything I need to do. And then here's my daily. Here's my daily right now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And just having that mindset, you need that master list, the wish list, like the list that tells you everything, because you don't want it to all live in your head. That's
Nope.
really stressful. But it's also really stressful to have the master list be the daily to-do list, because that's not realistic if you're trying to get everything done every single day.
No, and no, it's not. And there's a whole this also productivity idea of your second brain, right? That your to-do list or your master to-do list or your assistant or whatever is your second brain because you can't hold it all. And so for me, having this Google sheet that I can just basically brain dump in, I got to get this, I want to do this, and then pulling it out about what can I get done today. And the nice thing also for me when I look at it in list form is I can see, like, make sure exercise is on there, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I could just work all day. I'm too, I love what I do and I love my company and I have to sort of build in other things. So it's nice when I see it like walk with my husband, things like that.
Yes. Have you found that to be helpful or stressful? Like, I think for some
No,
people.
helpful,
Okay.
super helpful. And for me, also finding like scheduling in exercise on my calendar, it's what I say to people about decluttering. There are very few people in the world who wake up every day and go like, yay, I get to declutter today. I do, but a lot of people don't. So schedule it in, right? Schedule it in, make an appointment for yourself. What if it's important? It's a doctor's appointment, it's meeting a friend for coffee, scheduling it because you're making yourself accountable.
Exactly. And bringing those things up to the same level of importance, right? We put things on our to do list that are the chores, or like we have like a certain category of things we think we're allowed to put on a to do list. But things like exercise or getting together with a friend or like the things that are really even like making lunch, that's something Laura and I have actually talked about, that like if you want to eat like a healthy lunch, like you're gonna have to carve out a few minutes probably to either make something or heat up some leftovers or something like that. And we don't value those things the same way, it seems, in our minds. Like we're just like, oh, like I just got to squeeze in lunch here in between these to-do list items. But like maybe having a healthy lunch is the to-do list item.
Yeah, one definitely. I think that, I can tell on the days where I'm stacked my schedule and my to-do list like dominoes and, one thing falls and it all goes. Those are definitely so great that you say this, but those are definitely the days that I don't eat healthier,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And when I sort of go like, okay, you're going to, clock out at 5:30, that gives me the time to cook dinner. Like, okay, great.
Right.
Then I've got another hour and I just am finding it's so simple, but I'm just finding more and more that time when I'm cooking dinner, my husband and I are chatting and we're catching up for the day. And then we sit down and we have dinner together and we're reconnected. And it's something I don't want to breeze through anymore. It's like, okay, sure, I can DoorDash a dinner and not think about it. But that time I'm in the kitchen, he's coming in, he cooks too, but it's really relaxing for me. But I find it's just a way to be connected.
Exactly. And I think it kind of shows that there are sometimes things that are urgent and they're not always the same as the things that are important. And sometimes
Yes.
we let so many things be urgent that like the truly important things, like spending time with your spouse or your children or exercise, like it's hard for that to ever feel urgent. You could always do it tomorrow, right? Like I'm sure there are
Right.
some days where you and your husband for whatever reason aren't able to spend an hour cooking dinner and sitting down and eating together because you're running from appointment to appointment, and that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that day. It's not broken, but it's easy to let it become routine or habit that there's always something urgent.
I think for me, it was sort of a big shift was I was feeling so reactive in my life, right? That I was reacting to texts and emails and just like whatever was the loudest, squeakiest, I was giving that my attention and not getting things done. And so when I realized that, no, I don't want to be reactive, I want to be proactive. So I try and take times, it's hard to do, but I do try and say like, okay, I'm going to look at emails for an hour in the morning, an hour midday, and an hour at the end of the day. Because you could sit on your computer all day and just answer emails,
Right.
right? And so by scheduling it out, I find that I'm much more proactive. And I don't know, being in that reactive space, that's just making me so stressed
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
You just feel like
Absolutely.
you're in a batting cage, right? Like I'm just hitting whatever ball's thrown at me. And so for me, lists, they really help me. And I like to write them my daily. There's something about the handwriting of it.
Yeah, totally. So I know you are a decluttering expert. You've done this for other people. I'm sure you've done it for yourself and friends and family. And so, how has decluttering your space helped just you and your day with getting things done, even your like mental, emotional health? Like, how has that changed your daily routine of having a space that you can feel at peace in?
It's funny. My husband, the great, I like to call it the great cosmic joke. My husband is very clean but messy, right? So he's very cluttery, and so we've been navigating that. And it's funny. I've sort of the best example when we first got married, and he would lose his keys all the time, running around. Where are my keys? Where are my wallet? Where are my keys? Where are my wallet? And I was like, here's this pretty fish bowl, and we're going to put it right by the front door. And when you come in, just drop. That's it. I was just like, try this. Like, no. And he got in the habit, and it changed his life. He
Yeah.
just doesn't have that problem anymore. And when he doesn't do it, that's when he's right. He's like, oh, right. So understanding that being decluttered and being organized is not about being right. It's never about being right. It's about having a life that's simple so it's easy to maintain. And the best way to be organized is to have less stuff. And the only way you can have less stuff is if you declutter.
Yeah.
So for me, it always starts, we can't even talk about getting organized until we talk about decluttering. And I know that you guys have talked about this a lot in different forums, but decluttering, organizing, and cleaning are three separate tasks. And I think that's where people get really waylaid when they try and do it all at once. And they're very separate. Decluttering, getting rid of the things you don't love, need, or use. Organizing, creating systems, putting things away so you know where to find them, labeling so you always know what's in there, and then cleaning. That's cleaning. And so once people understand that those are three separate things and they need to be done either consecutively or at different times, I think that's why so many people get frustrated because they're trying to declutter and organize at once or clean and organize. And you just have to know that there's three separate tasks.
Right. So I think like decluttering, obviously, probably in general being the first task to
Yep.
tackle on that
Yeah.
list. I mean, I'm sure there
Yes.
might be a situation in which like something was really urgent to clean first, but
Yeah.
in general, um, decluttering being like the first stepping stone there. So for someone who is feeling really overwhelmed by their day, how can they start decluttering? I guess maybe the question is kind of twofold. First of all, for the person who is maybe thinking, I'm so stressed out by my day, like taking time to declutter is not what's going to fix it. What would you say to that?
Great. So, a couple things. One, if you're in the position and able to do it, would it be helpful to hire a professional organizer? There are so many great ones out there, and you may need that help. That's one of those things where you sort of look at your life and think, like, I have a beautiful yard. I love my yard. I don't like to garden. I have a lovely man who comes in, like, took that off my plate. Maybe if you are really overwhelmed, can you hire someone? Can you ask a friend to come and help you? That's the first thing. So many of us, especially women, we think we have to do it all, and there's just not enough hours in the day. So that's something on the table. And then, understanding that you've got to book that time to do it, right? So yes, you're like, I don't even know where I'm going to find this time, but maybe there's a Saturday when you can send the kids to the grandparents or put them down in front of a movie every once in a while and say, and then say, like, I'm going to take an hour and I'm going to do my mudroom. I'm just going to get rid of the kids' clothes that don't fit and the shoes they outgrew and the sports things they don't. play anymore. So, booking the time, again, to go about what we're talking about, booking an hour to declutter and just focus on the decluttering. Don't worry about the systems. Don't worry about the cleaning. Focus on the decluttering. And pick an area. Sometimes we're like, I have to do my whole house. You're not going to get your whole house done in an hour.
Right. And even the examples you gave there, you're also probably not going to get the trickiest things decluttered in an hour. And in my experience, decluttering is something you come back to over and over again. It's not like I think we think of it as a one and done. Like we know that
No.
cleaning, like I clean my bathroom. Actually, sometimes I'm annoyed when I clean my bathroom. I'm like, oh man, like it's so nice and clean, and I am gonna have to clean it again.
I
Like,
know.
um,
No one take a shower. The glass is perfect. There's not a spot on it.
Exactly. Yes. So I think sometimes though we think that decluttering, I mean, it's true. You've heard it said, like, oh, like get the stuff out of your house and you never have to touch it again. And that's true. Like it's
Mm,
specific things that you're getting out of your house, but it doesn't mean that there's nothing in your house that you have to touch again. It's those specific things. So you got rid of the shoes that didn't fit, but there's still maybe shoes that fit that you don't want anymore, or they're could serve someone else better. And so just realizing that like it's not a one and done.
no, and I think that I mean, I we can trace back to where that ideology came from, and I've disagreed with it from the beginning. First of all, it's stuff keeps coming into your house.
Right.
Like this idea, like first of all, we could talk about shopping and overconsumption, but you like take the kids grow out of the shoes and they don't fit anymore. Okay, well, you get rid of those. Well, in about 6 months, they're going to grow out of the next pair. Like
Right.
decluttering. That's why I always say in this sort of idea of decluttering, organizing, and cleaning, like you have to have a regular cleaning practice. Your house gets dirty again. Your house gets cluttered again. People give you gifts, right? Things show up. Mail comes every day. So I think that is one of the biggest shifts, that you didn't fail if
Yeah.
more stuff comes in. And everyone's like, I just did all this. It's like, yes, but stuff comes in, especially if you have more than one person living in your house. People, everybody, kids, I feel like kids are like little pieces of Velcro, and you send them out in the world and they come back with all this stuff stuck on them.
Yeah.
You're like, where did that come from? Where were you that you brought all that stuff?
Right. Yes. And also, like, I would say in my experience, it's gotten easier. Like, so if you
Yes,
feel like you're going through, maybe this is your first time really decluttering your house and you're like, I can't do this again, like, it does get easier. It just becomes, it's more like a maintenance task. I mean, it's kind of like it's like cleaning your bathroom, right? Like if you haven't cleaned your bathroom in 5 years, it's going to be really really hard to
yes.
get it clean. But once you get it clean, yeah, you're going to have to clean it again next couple of weeks or however whenever it is you clean your shower or your bathroom, but it's going to be so much easier than when it was 5 years since the last time. And so just keeping it, like envisioning it just like cleaning.
Exactly. And the other thing that starts to happen once you get a regular like you do the big declutter, the one that's ripping off the band-aid, and it's so difficult, and then gets easier and easier as you're doing it. But the other thing that starts to happen is you start to rethink your purchases, right?
Mhm.
Because you have a moment where you're like, do I really love this? Am I just going to have to give this away
Right.
in, a couple months? Do I really want to buy it? I see this a lot too, where people sort of when they're shopping, they're like, but I can always donate it. I'm like, yeah, but if you're already thinking about getting rid of it, why are you even bringing it into your house?
Right. Yeah. I definitely think that is another area that, like, thinking about bringing things into our home and bringing things into our spaces. What are some of the, like, I don't know, guidelines, ideas, tips that you have for people when they're thinking about their purchases? I mean, the truth is, we're going to have to purchase something. I mean, like we're going to wear out our own shoes. We're going to want to wear something different. We're going to all sorts of different things. Our technology is going to upgrade and it's going to require us to buy like different things that go with our computers. Like there's no such thing as like zero consumption. But
No.
what are some ways that people can just think about what they're consuming to make sure they're making I guess purchases that have longevity. I don't know that there's
Yeah.
very many things that you can actually buy once. Like, that's a great idea. You get on Reddit and you see the like buy once threads. They're like, I want to buy one vacuum cleaner for the next 50 years. And it's like, I mean, that'd be great. I'd
Maybe,
pay a lot of money for
maybe.
that vacuum
Yeah.
cleaner.
Yeah. Like, tell me when you find it, tell me. Tasha, two fantastic ways that people can do this. So, one, I set it at $100, but anything I want to buy for every $100 that it costs, I wait 24 hours till I buy it. So I see something like, let's say I see a vacuum cleaner and it's $400 and I'm like, oh, but I think it's the one I want. I wait 4 days and then do my research. And so oftentimes what happens with that is once you start waiting, you're like, actually, my vacuum cleaner's fine.
Yeah.
It's shiny new object. So that's a great one. And some people save $50, just set a limit and um, look at it. The other, this one is this one is such a game changer. Stop saying the word I need. I need a new pair of jeans. I need a new sweater. I need a new vacuum cleaner because most of the time you don't, you just want it. So
Right.
if you say the word want, oh, I want a new pair of jeans, all of a sudden it loses its grip on you, right? You're like, oh, I want a new pair of jeans. And then you're like, well, do I really want a new pair? Or was I just feeling lonely today? Or was my husband annoying me? Right? Was there something going on? Was it a hard day at work and it just felt good to go put things in my Amazon cart? So just swapping the word want for need,
Yep.
just change that language. And once you start doing that, it's amazing. Like you push through it. You're like, oh, I actually didn't. I just was, I don't know, annoyed today. And being organized, being decluttered and organized helps you see how much of something you have.
Yeah.
That's the big one, right? Like when your closet's organized, you're like, oh, I actually have 10 pairs of black pants. I do not need and or want another pair. So it's all tied together. But I think when people understand that we really don't need that much. We have pretty much everything we need. And most of the stuff we just want it. And that's okay. And you're going to want things and you're going to buy things just because they're fun. But when you are accountable and mindful and realize that, all of a sudden the like grip that it has on you lessens.
Yeah. And another place that I have found it really helpful at times to be organized and know what you have, snacks in my pantry. It is I mean, I hope everyone else does the same thing and I'm not the only person who like buys this kind of crackers and we eat half to three quarters of the bag and then I'm like, "Ooh, we should try this kind of cookie." And we eat most of those and then we have a cereal and we have another cereal and we have some beef jerky and all of a sudden you have a dozen different half to three quarter eaten snacks and you're buying more and bringing them in and wondering why the pantry is overflowing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and the biggest, for me, it's when I go to the grocery store without my grocery list,
Yeah.
I come home like my husband will be like, we have so much mustard. And I'm like, I know, because every time I go, I think we need more. And I like if I don't have a list, right? And so that's one of the things I do with a lot of my clients too is, and people have found this really helpful, is like basically creating your grocery list of here's what we need all the time. We always need pasta, turkey. This is the stuff we eat all the time. And then before you go, just checking it. Where are you at? You know what? Actually, we have enough of those crackers to get
Right.
us through. Being mindful of it. And then that opens the door to lowering your food waste, right? That you're not throwing away food that's gone. I mean, with the cost of groceries right now, the last thing you want to be doing is throwing food away after it's gone bad.
Right. Yeah. And so with that and like having good meal prep and leftovers, like I know that's something you'd mentioned we were talking before. Like how do you set yourself up for success to have like the least amount of food waste?
Yeah, it's a big something I'm very focused about. We're lucky. I live in California, so we have amazing farmer markets. And
Yeah.
so we go every Sunday, Saturday or Sunday, depending on where we are, we'll go to farmers market and I plan the meals around that. And I always plan when we have my stepson living with us, we really got into like he was working a job where he's really hungry. And so, you just couldn't have those nights where you're like, I don't know. So, Taco Tuesdays, Mediterranean Wednesdays, sort of themes. But, we really cook for the week. And then we always kind of look at one night, like last night was leftover night because I had a great bean soup and we had a little bit of this. And so, I think planning those leftover nights and also making those things that can become something else,
Yes. That
you
is really
know.
helpful.
And
Go ahead.
no, go, go, go.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, we did chili, and then I put it a few days later over baked potatoes, and it felt like a totally different meal. Like,
Totally different meal. And I'll say this, we're empty nesters, so there's just two of us now,
sure.
and it's still a struggle for us. Like
Yeah.
even if you're just two people, it's still a struggle. Like, as hard as it's for cooking for a family, just two, we're like days. Sometimes I think being married is just saying, "What do you want for dinner?" I don't know. What do you want for dinner?
I think I've seen that meme. It's like saying it over and over again until one of you dies. Like, that's just all it's gonna be.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I try and cook very seasonally and what's available, and it's just. But again, it's just about being mindful, and I think that's the thing, too, especially around for me in my experience around food prepping and meal planning, is it's actually not that much time to plan it for the week, right? Like it's not, it's like, I'll sit down, we'll go to farmer's market, see what's fresh. And then I'll sit down and I'll go, okay, well, I got an acorn squash and I could do this on this night, and I write it out and we have a shared note and maybe it takes 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then I'm set up for the week,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
and I
So,
think we all think it's so much work, but in the end, it's just a little bit of front loading and you're in good shape.
oh yeah, and so much of this, it all kind of goes hand in hand, right, with the ideas of what you're bringing in and reducing food waste. Like, all of it has to do with consumption and with clutter and with what we're actually using and with what we want versus what we need, and just kind of having that mindset shift, and also having a lot of grace for the fact that we are trying to reduce food waste. We are trying
Yes.
to reduce clutter. We're not going to ever be perfect at those things. And so just recognizing that, like, any shift that we can make is forward progress.
Yes. Yes. And understanding, in some ways that things are a little stacked against us, right? Like we're being marketed to all the time. We're being told that we need to go shop at Costco and you've got to overbuy. But just these small shifts of like just paying attention, like, wow, I'm actually this yogurt is going bad before anybody eats it. Maybe nobody in the house likes this flavor of yogurt, so let me stop buying it, right? Like, just what are the places that you can have awareness of? Like, wow, when my this is a great one. I see this a lot with my clients that they'll buy their kid will love some shirt, and so they'll buy it in the next three sizes, and then the kid will skip over a size, and then they won't like the shirt anymore. And so if you find that when you're decluttering you're giving away a lot of clothes with tags still on them, like maybe you're buying too much, maybe you're projecting too far ahead in the future and you're ending up with all this extra stuff. So it's like you said, giving yourself the grace and opening the door for a little bit more mindfulness, just paying a little bit more attention, right? Like that's it. Just like, oh wow, okay, there's a lot of food going bad in my refrigerator. Well, let's look at that. And I think that's always a great way. We just, I don't know. I feel like so much of the time we're like, oh, I'm not doing it right, and everybody's doing it better than me, and I,
We
and it's like
all have produce going bad in our refrigerator.
we
Like,
all
let's
have.
just put it out there.
I threw out celery and lettuce yesterday, so
Yes. Yep, I threw out some cilantro. So
so like you said, giving yourself the grace and just being mindful. And what are the little changes I can make? Because those little changes add up to big changes.
exactly. Yeah. And like you said, I mean, we're probably all more similar than we think. There's some people who are maybe more naturally organized, more naturally, I don't even know if minimalist is the right word. They just have less clutter in their spaces. They just are attracted to that, naturally. They don't want as much stuff. And we all have like things that we're really great at and things we're not as great at. And so one thing I like to ask the people I have on, like, Tracy, is there anything that you would say, like, okay, this is not my strong suit? Like, what people would maybe expect me to be really good at, this is
Yeah,
not.
I got two of them as a professional organizer. I am terrible at opening my mail. I'm terrible. I'm like, it stacks up. I just don't deal with it. It's just, I sort of get to a point where I'm like, and I've missed invitations. It's one that I'm really bad at. And also this one's, it takes me a while to put my clothes away out of the laundry basket.
We've all been there.
I'm like getting dressed out of the laundry basket. I'm like, and then I'm looking for something, and I'm just realizing, like, when that task comes, it's like, just see it all the way through. Just because putting away clothes does not take that long. Just see it all the way through. You fold it, put in just see it all the way through. So those are a couple that, and again, it's,
And
I'm a
it doesn't
human, and
mean that you are now labeled as a disorganized person, or that, your life is not running smoothly because you didn't open the mail. Like, everyone has the things that they are really good at and the things they're not as good at. I mean, people will probably hear me say it a bajillion times on this podcast. I can do a huge cleaning marathon all day, every day. Like, that's great. Like, sign me up. I feel accomplished. I can tackle a big project. You want me to take vitamins every day for like the next forever? No. Like, and which of those is easier? Like,
yeah.
really, truly, one of them takes hours and hours, and one of them I need to go like get a drink of water and take my vitamins. But I'm terrible at it. Okay. And so we all have the things that we are excelling at and the things that are more difficult. And we all have different things that we're looking for ways to implement systems and to improve. And so even once you declutter and there's less in your home, and even once get a system for your husband's keys and wallet and where they're going to go, something like that, the next thing will probably come. And that doesn't mean that you failed or you're not organized.
No, and Tasha, you bring up such a good point. And I think this is also goes back to what the one and done, right? Your life changes,
Yes.
right? As you age yourself, you have different needs, you different stuff. As your kids get older, their changes. As you have parents that move in with you. I think that I see that a lot with clients where they're like, but this used to work. And I'm like, yes, but your life was different back then, right? And so understanding that your decluttering and organizational and cleaning needs, shopping needs, right? I see that all the time, that people shop for food as if they're still a family of five, right? And it's like,
Right.
oh, it's just two of you now. So understanding that it's a process and that it's a flow, and it doesn't mean you're lazy or disorganized. It just means your life has changed and you haven't caught up to it yet.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's
I
going to
see
take some trial and error.
it's going to take some trial and error. Big thing I see people decluttering with my clients, especially my older clients, is like holiday stuff, right? Because they're like,
Mhm.
oh, hosting.
Yeah.
I'm not hosting anymore. I actually don't need all this stuff. So
Right.
understanding that as your life changes, your needs are going to change, and that's not a failure.
Exactly. Yes. So many, like, I feel like I hear that in like every area of this conversation, right? Recognizing all of these shifts and things that we're being more aware of as an opportunity to make the progress we want, right? Like, if you want a less cluttered space, then finding an area where clutter is coming in, like, that's a success. That's a win. Being able to say, hey, like, I can stop bringing in more clutter here. And initially it feels like, oh no, like, I'm bad. Like, I found this like thing I'm bad at. But like, if it would be worse if you wanted a less cluttered space and we couldn't find anywhere that clutter was coming in, right? And there was
Right.
just no answer.
Well, and I think that's a really important thing too, that, there's so much this that thing like, oh, I'm a lazy, or I'm a bad housekeeper, or there's so many factors. How do you process information? Are you dealing with ADD? Are you dealing with grief? Are there's so much stuff that adds up to it. And just like I just go back to what you said, just having the grace. It's hard to be a human.
Yes.
It's hard to be human. It's hard to be a good human. We're all trying our best. And I think when we start there, and there is no perfect, right? There's what works, there's what works for you. And I think once people stop looking for the perfect and saying, like, I just want my house to work, I want my family, I want my husband and I to be happy in it, I want it to work. And once you get there, and then maybe you'll get to perfect, but then someone will take their shoes off in the living room and it's not perfect anymore. That's okay.
Exactly. Yep. It's just like cleaning the bathroom. If
Yep.
it was perfect, then we'd never be able to use it. So Absolutely. I know one thing. So you've written a couple books about decluttering. So you have making space clutter free, and also make space for happiness. And in that second one, because make space for happiness is the second of the two. Is that
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yes.
So in that second one, you talk about like people's homes and how that can be a starting point for what you were just talking about for a joyful life. You want a home that runs well, and I think that's what a lot of people they want. They want to feel at home in their home. And
Yeah.
so how like what mindset shifts or even like simple actions would you recommend people start taking like to just start moving in that direction of their home kind of facilitating the life that they want?
So the first step is funny. It's always, and I do this when I work with clients. The first step is always, what's your goal? Why do you want this?
Yeah.
Just start there. Do you want less stuff because you want to, be out volunteering, or you want to stop having that fight with your kids about where's their backpack? Once you want to start being able to entertain, once or you don't want to entertain, once figure out your why. And your why is never, I'm lazy, or I'm, like I said, I'm a bad housekeeper. It's what's your positive goal with the why. And then once you get there, once you're clear about that, then kind of everything falls into place after. Like, oh, I want my guest room to be empty so that my grandkids can come and visit me. Right now it's full of stuff and they have to stay in a hotel and they can't really afford it, so they don't come and visit me. Well, that's a great motivator, right? It makes it so easy to get in there and declutter and organized so that they can come visit. I want to cook healthier. My kitchen countertops are super cluttered. It doesn't make me want to go in there and cook, so I go through the drive-through, right? Once you associate it with a positive outcome, that's your kicking off point.
Yeah. Envisioning what the specifics look like. Like it's easy. Everyone can say, like, I want to have a happier, healthier life, all of those things. But like, what would that actually look like? What would that mean you're doing? And that I feel like that comes full circle back to what we were talking about at the beginning of scheduling in those things that are important. So sometimes it is the work tasks that we have to do. And sometimes it is the maybe it's putting away the laundry out of the laundry basket,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Getting
Or
that
being okay with the fact that I don't always do it. And there you go.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
you think about something like you think about somebody who says, playing pickleball makes me really happy. Like I have a social, I'm out there, I'm getting exercise. So what do I have to do in my life, time management wise, to clear out that hour and a half to do it? And then just understanding, like coming at all that stuff, not to beat yourself up, but to say, like, is this going to bring me happiness?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I have one last question I like to ask everyone we have on, and that is what is one thing that is bringing you less stress and more peace right now?
So I got an old fashioned alarm clock, and which means I don't take my phone into my room at night. So
Yep.
my phone is out where I can hear it. If somebody calls in, it's emergency, I can hear it. Set the alarm clock, and I am not scrolling at night anymore. I'm reading.
That is awesome.
And I sleep better. I'm not up late. I'm not all the things. I've read so many books, and which
Yeah.
brings me so much happiness, and I feel like I can wind down. It was such a simple change, and it just made me so happy. It's amazing. I never thought I would have what's happened. And it's funny, every once in a while when my husband's out of town, I'll keep my phone in my room just because I'm in the house by myself. And I fall down. I'm like up 2 hours later scrolling for no good reason. So it's been so good old fashioned alarm clock.
I love that. And it just reminds me, I feel like there's so many people that there's so many cool things in the world that people want to do. Like to anyone who's listening to this podcast, like there's probably awesome things that you want to do. Reading books, playing pickleball, creating things in the kitchen, like all of these different things. And it is so easy to get our time filled up with things we don't actually want to be doing. They're just the default thing. So I love that story that you share, that you've like found the time to read again.
It's just been great. It's been absolutely great, and was such a simple. And I'm like, the alarm clock was really like $12. Like it was nothing fancy, and it's been great. And also, well, what led me to that was I put the um, alert on my phone, so I see how much time I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
at the end of the week, that's
Yeah.
brutal,
Yeah.
brutal. I was like, what? My life is wasting. Like, there goes, there goes. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. Tracy, thank you so much for chatting with us today. Um, where would be the best people, or where would be the best place, I should say, for people to find you online to just follow along with what you're doing and hear more from you?
Yeah, Instagram's great, at Tracy_McCubbin. We have so much fun over there. And then if you pop over to my website, tracymccubbin.com, I've got a newsletter, every once in a while, super fun. And I've also started to do this really great thing. I've become a creator for Yahoo. So I
Really?
am writing 2 articles a week for Yahoo. You could just go on Yahoo, search my name, and we just had a fantastic "What to Do with Your Wedding Dress" article that
Awesome.
got lots of views. So that's a fun place to see what I'm up to too.
Awesome. Well, we'll put links to all of that in the show notes too, so people can find that. Tracy, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Tasha.
Well, thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the Get Organized HQ podcast and for hearing all about Tracy and her great ideas for managing your time, managing your space, and pursuing less stress and more peace. We hope to see you next week.